Good morning, and welcome to Common Knowledge, a show where I take a look at 10 common Magic the Gathering cards and tell you are they any good in the Pauper format or not. I guess it might not be morning for you. It is for me. I just woke up and I thought I want to look at some Magic cards. This hat is not for warmth or style. It is it is containing heretofore unseen amounts of bedhead. So I don't know. Enjoy that, I guess. Let's take a look at some common cards. Goblin Matron. Oh, Goblin Matron. What a card. 2 and a red for a 1/1 Goblin. When this creature enters, you may search your library for a Goblin card, reveal that card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. It's a tutor. Only for Goblins, but it's a tutor. I think you could do some interesting stuff with this in Pauper. You know, You've got changelings that you can grab that are all goblins, obviously, because they're every creature type. We've seen how ephemerate loops can do some cool stuff with like Archaeomancer and Ardent Elementalist, I suppose. And you could do kind of similar things. Keep grabbing cool changelings. I guess it doesn't loop like that, but still cool things you can do to blink or bounce this thing and keep on playing it. What actual goblins matter in the Pauper format? You know, we've seen goblin decks, we've seen mono red goblin decks in Pauper. They're not as in style right now because we have such good mono red madness and burn strategies that you don't really need to play the versions that have goblins going wide. But man, there's something about a relatively unrestricted tutor. Yes, it's restricted to just goblins, and that is pretty restrictive. But it's any goblin. You know, you could we could just do the work here, couldn't we? Let's take a look at our changelings that are in Pauper. I'm sure we've looked at this list before, but it's worth taking a look again. Let's also sort by mana value, because I want to see like what are some of the biggest guys that we can get. So we'll do ascending, descending. That's the one we want. Silly guy. I have Rooftop Percher from Lorwyn Eclipse. That could be kind of fun. Graveyard Hate, Life Gain, a flyer. It costs 5. That's a little rough, but you know the Goblin Matron's in red, and this can be played by any color for sure. So that's an idea. Okay, there aren't that many amazing changeling options. Probably the ones that you're really considering would be like a Mass Vandal, being able to get that artifact and enchantment hate piece would be all right. A Nameless Inversion is kind of fun as a removal spell. That'd be cool. Same for Crib Swap. Crib Swap could be a good one too, just as a removal option. There are things. You know, ramp here with the Fur Core. I've seen this do some kind of cool things in Standard right now. So there's definitely some things you can grab, but maybe it's not that broken. Maybe that's why we haven't seen Goblin Matron really make the grade in too many goblin decks. Or too many Pauper decks generally. I'm sorry again, early, and I don't drink coffee, but I haven't had my coffee yet. So, what are we gonna give Goblin Matron? I think it's a cool card. I would like to see fun things that you can do to do blink and bounce and make this work. But Goblin strategies are generally really fast, aggressive strategies. And Goblin Matron costs too much for that, doesn't do enough for that, being just a 1/1 itself. And so I think you have to find like a mid-range or some kind of weirder deck for this to fit into. And I just haven't seen that deck yet, but I think you could do some cool things with it. Let's give it I'm going to give it a 2.7, I think. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a 2.7. Our next card is Inner Fire, a Kamigawa card. 3 and a red for a sorcery. Add red for each card in your hand. Pretty simple, but you can see where it's coming from. So you got a ritual here. The thing with this being in red is that red doesn't tend to have a lot of cards in your hand. Right? Because the way that you get cards, think about the way you draw cards in red. We have all sorts of discard 1, draw 2 cards in red. And those are card neutral, right? You're spending a card that you spending the card that has the discard 1, draw 2, and you're discarding a card. So that's 2 cards you're going down. Sorry, 2 cards you're going down, and you're picking up 2 cards. So that evens out. So you're not really drawing any new card. You're just filtering cards. Faithless Looting draws you 2, but then you have to discard 2. So you come out in the wash there. Like that's 0 card advantage. And we have so many other cards that red will use for, I'm thinking about like Ruby Storm decks. Like, oh, Ruby Storm decks would love this card. Not really, because those decks will exile a bunch of cards off the top of the library that they can play. So those aren't cards in your hand either. So I think this card is only good once it's paired with a color that draws a ton of cards. So blue, maybe green. And it being sorcery speed is a little rough. Maybe not that bad that it's just sorcery speed in this case, but the cost is a little too much. It only giving you red back makes it a little restrictive, because if you are splashing another color to draw a bunch of cards, well, now all this mana is red. And you can't play any more of your blue spells. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe we just don't. We have not played Inner Fire in Pauper because it's probably just not that great. But it could be strong. This could be a pretty incredible commander card that I have not seen people play in Commander. Some weird loop where you just draw your entire deck, and then you play a card like this. You gain, what, 70, 80 mana, and then you do some like big fireball effect that kills the table. I don't know. Maybe. But in Pauper, it's really hard to give ritual effects a not amazing score in this exercise, because they can just be incredibly strong. But this one, I think, has enough restrictions around it that I'm willing to give it something like a 2.4. Yeah, 2.4. I think that works. Another red card. 3 red cards in a row here. Boggart Arsonists from Shadowmoor. It's 2 and a red for a 2/1 Goblin Rogue with Planeswalk. Have we done this one before? Or if I just looked at this card recently? It might be that I've just looked at this card recently outside of this show. It's got Planeswalk, so this creature can't be blocked as long as defending player controls a planes. And for 2 and a red, you can sacrifice this creature and destroy target Scarecrow or planes. Okay. I like, and I know Wizards doesn't do this very often, and even less now that they've kind of semi-retired land walk abilities. But I like a creature that land walks for a different color than themselves. I like the idea that, hey, these guys, this is a white hate piece. So how are we going to, but it also doesn't kill just white cards, which I think is interesting. It's used in a different way to hate out white, and that way is both, attacking it because they have planes, so it attacks in for free, unblocked, but also in that it destroys specifically white's lands. And Scarecrows, which again, don't get me wrong, we just talked about Changeling a couple cards ago for Goblin Matron, and this can also kill opponents' Changelings. That's kind of cool. Or Scarecrows. How many Scarecrows really matter in the format? Probably not that many. Maybe not any at all. We don't have Painter's Servant here, so we're not we're not as worried about that. I It's not good. I gotta I gotta be upfront with you. This is not a very good card. 3 mana 2/1 that even if it was unblockable completely, I don't think that would really shake up the format too much. This is not something you would put in your main deck. It would be in a sideboard, and even then, without protection, we have plenty of white cards that have protection from red that we'll bring in like our Bogles decks. There's the flying falcon or hawk guy that has protection from red, and we do that to stop those red spells from killing that guy. White spells could still totally kill this dude before he gets to do anything. White has a lot of removal to it, and this guy won't stop any of it unless, I suppose he sacrifices himself to destroy that plains and to the point that they don't have the mana to play it. I don't particularly like it, but I think it is interesting. Maybe if it was a little cheaper, it would be more interesting. But even so, I think we'll give this a... And all these scores feel kind of similar. We gave it 2.7, we gave it 2.4. I kind of want to give this somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2.5. Yeah, I think I can give it a 2.5. And we'll see if we get a card that is either much better or much worse. Detainment spell. Single white mana for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creatures' activated abilities can't be activated. And you can pay 1 and a white to attach this aura to target creature. So it's... that's funny. I guess I probably own a couple copies of this if it was in Time Spiral. So it's like a pacifism... Well, sorry. It's like an arrest, but it took the pacifism part off it. That's not very good, is it? I suppose in Pauper, there are a ton of cards that aren't scary as attackers or blockers, but are scary for the things that they can tap and do. But I think you want the freedom. I think you want the freedom to have an arrest in your hand that can attach itself to any of those potential targets. I do like that this is able to move onto other creatures as it sees fit. So if, maybe it's a case of trying to think, like you are able to block their creature that has this on it. That creature is going to die. Then you can pay this and attach it to another one of their creatures at instant speed, so it stays on the board. You could honestly even attach this to one of your own guys to just keep it on the board until your opponent plays another creature, and then you can play it again. That's spending a lot of mana on an effect that is really not that good. It's really not. Yeah, I think this card is bad. I do think this card is bad. Why don't we go with something like a 1.4? I think I can work with a 1.4. That is worse. That is significantly worse than the handful of other cards we've seen. So maybe we should try. Let's try this again. Let's go back to a red card that's somewhere in the 2 range, right? No, we're done with that now. Deep Freeze, 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature has base power and toughness 0/4, has defender, loses all other abilities, and is a blue wall in addition to its other colors and types. It's just not good anymore. We've power crept this removal kind of option. We have Unable to Scream, which is a single mana to turn a creature into a 0/2. Now it doesn't give it defender. It also loses the abilities with Unable to Scream, but it doesn't give it defender. So this has a bit more utility than that. But do you really want to spend 2 more mana to get that? And honestly, we don't even really play Unable to Scream either. We'll the one that we play more these days is Blossom Bind. Yeah, this is still cheaper than Deep Freeze, and it just taps the creature and they can't untap. And so that's pretty good. You see this card start to be used in mono blue fairies. Wouldn't really show up in terror, so it's not an instant or a sorcery. But you start to see this card as a blue removal option, and I think that just makes a card like Deep Freeze incredibly outclassed. So I think you can go. I mean, it still is a form of removal. It's a 3-mana removal spell in blue. If you have flyers or something, if you are playing that mono blue fairies deck or Dimir fairies or whatever. Well, if you're playing Dimir fairies, you should just play cast downs instead. But if you're playing a mono blue fairies, all your fairies fly over this guy. But then once you've brought in your ninjas won't get past this guy. Yeah, that's a real problem, isn't it? What do we think? I'm thinking I could give this a 1.8 and feel okay about it. What is our next card? It's Open the Omen Pass. Another red card. All right. Open the Omen Pass from Kaldheim is an instant. Choose one, add 2 mana of any one color and 2 mana of any other color. Spend this mana only to cast creature or enchantment spells. Or creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Well, that's cool. Huh. Why? Why have we not seen this in Ruby Storm? It's a 3-mana spell that makes 4 mana. I guess it only casts creature and enchantment spells, so Ruby Storm is really wanting to play those instants and sorceries to continue those loops, but it's a ritual that turns 3 mana into 4 mana. And in Ruby Storm, you could turn this, you could make this 1 mana into 4 mana. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. It's an interesting idea. And then you can't forget it does have this little pump effect to it as an option as well. So it works in lots of different points of the game. That's cool. That's just a cool card. I'd never seen this one before. I wasn't playing during call time, but I think that's just a good effect both ways. But also restrictive enough where you understand why it's not a Pauper All-Star, I suppose. I do like turning 3 mana into 4 mana. It also fixes your colors. That's pretty good. Lets you put down a big creature earlier. Little, ritual into ramp for a turn. I guess that's why they call them rituals. Yeah, I like this. I do. I don't have a deck idea in mind off the top of my head, but anytime you're turning smaller amounts of mana into bigger amounts of mana, you've got a pretty good card. You've got a pretty good card on your hands. I'm going to give this thing a 4 point. I don't just want to give it a straight 4. That's a little boring. Let's give it a 4.3. I could totally see somebody using this in Pauper and finding a deck that makes it work. Neat card. Return Centaur is 3 and a black for a 2/4 zombie centaur. When this creature enters, target player mills 4 cards. 4 cards is a decent amount of cards. 4 cards is what we see from Town Greeter and Satyr, some guy in the dredge decks. I've got these. Or Circle of the Land Druid. Circle of the Land Druid mills 4. So we have some of these effects. Those effects that I talked about are all in green, or the cards I picked out here are all green cards, and they're all cheaper than this guy. And they all go in the dredge decks, which also play black. So those decks could play this guy. But when you have so many options that do it for 2 mana, Why would you really need a guy that does it for 4 mana? He has a 2/4 body, which is a lot better than those 1/1 bodies of all those other guys we talked about. But is that good enough? Not really. Not really. He's he's just a little too expensive. He would work in a dredge deck. I think if you if you banned a ton of cards out of dredge that really have no business being banned. Honestly, Spy's the only one I want banned from those kinds of decks, so we can go back to having cool normal dredge decks. I yeah, Return Centaur is not going to make that grade. And if it doesn't go in that deck, what deck does it really go into? Do you have some kind of loop that you can pull where you can keep on playing this and mill your opponent out entirely? Maybe. But if you can do that, you have better payoff options that can do that better than this Centaur. So I'm going to give this thing I'm just going to give it a straight 2. Trained. I almost said tainted. Trained Jackal. That's a Portal 3 Kingdoms card. Hell yeah. Single green mana for a 1/2 Jackal. That's it. And this vanilla creature that's not particularly good. It's costs you $3.60 because Portal 3 Kingdoms is an expensive set that's not highly printed in English and wasn't printed in the US. So those cards are just not as available. And the ones that you want, and this one, honestly, for a Portal 3 Kingdoms card, pretty cheap. And it's because the cards that you want from Portal 3 Kingdoms are the ones that have the guys on them. Because they're all the ones with horsemanship, or they're all the ones that have fun stories behind them. This just is like a normal Magic card. This is a creature. It is interesting that it's a creature Jackal instead of that it hasn't been eroded into Hound or something like that. Like, what is Jackal Pup still a Jackal? Did I misspell Jackal Pup? Yes, I did. Of course I did. No, look, you had the word Jackal in front of your face the entire time. Jackal Pup is, it's still a Jackal. Okay. Weird. This wasn't eroded into dog in the same way that Hound was. Funny. Or at least wolf. I mean, jackals are not wolves, and they're not exactly dogs, but from a mechanic standpoint, you get what I'm saying. Anyway, this is not a very good card. But I like it because it's Portal 3 Kingdoms. That's the only reason I like it. We'll give this thing its creature, or its power and toughness. Let's give it a 1.2. And move right on. Ooh, Journey of Discovery. We've definitely done this card before. We definitely have, because I remember talking about this card quite a bit. I like this card. Kind of not a rampant growth exactly. I guess kind of like a Kodama's Reach in a way that can do some cool stuff. Journey to Discovery is a neat card, but we've already done it. I'm going to skip this one and go to Swarm Color instead. Swarm Color 3 and a black for a 2/4 Insect Warrior with flying. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, you may sacrifice another creature or artifact. If you do, draw a card from Edge of Eternity. So, relatively new card here. 4 mana, 2/4 flyer is fine, I guess. It certainly can block a lot of stuff in the Pauper format. This thing can block Refurbished Familiars and block Fairies and Core Skyfishers and Glinthawks. It blocks all of the good flyers in the Pauper format, or the most used flyers anyway. And then I kind of like this tap ability. There are plenty of black sacrifice decks that we do see in Pauper. Those decks, though, have sacrifice effects that are instant speed and repeatable in the way that this is not. So I think just because of that opportunity cost, you don't end up playing a card like this. But I do see the value here. We have plenty of ways of making artifact tokens every turn. And if you do, Swarm Color is able to sacrifice those little tokens, and then you draw cards off them. That's okay, while swinging in for 2 flying damage, which is not nothing. But also, having such a stat line like this of 2/4, you kind of want to keep this guy up to block a lot. And if you're tapping him to get the trigger, then he's not being able to block. It's a good mechanical tension of, do you want this guy to attack and get the effect, or do you want him to block and stop the effects of other opponents? Yeah, that's a fun choice that you get to make in the moment, which is fun and limited. But now when we're making a constructed deck where we can make the best cards available to us, I don't think Swarm Color makes the cut on that one. So where does that leave it from a score perspective? I think you can give this thing a 2.3. Next up, can we get a good card? We just did Tend the Sprigs a couple days ago, so that's kind of a good card, but not what we're looking for here. Lead Astray, 1 and a white for an instant. Tap up to 2 target creatures. I don't think that's half bad. I don't. Instant speed, you can play this on either turn. You can play this on your turn to open them up for big damage. You can do it on your opponent's turn before combat, so they are unable to swing in with a couple of creatures. You could do this on upkeep to stop your opponent from being able to use activated abilities at a time where they would want to use them. They'd have to use up all their mana before they draw their card, put them in a tough spot for that. You can use this in a way that allows you to do something with them. White has a bunch of pieces that will remove a creature if it's tapped, and you can kind of combo that. It's a really bad combo, but it is a combo, I suppose, of playing this and playing then Vengeance, right? Vengeance is the card I'm thinking of. Yeah, Vengeance. Destroy target tap creature. There you go. That's 6 mana. 6 mana to tap down 2 creatures and kill one of them. Not a great combo, but again, white has plenty of things that it can do with tapped creatures in other senses. So having a card that taps down a couple creatures is, halfway decent tempo. This is not a great effect, but it's one that could be useful. And I do like the card. I like the art on it. I like the ability. Not necessarily for Pauper, but I have a white border cube, so any card that was, it's a retro white border cube. So I'm not taking like Mystery Booster 2 white border cards, but it's all cards from 4th edition, 5th edition, starter, stuff like that. Portal 3 Kingdoms, I suppose, is also in there, and that deck is, or that cube is supposed to be, not super mechanically complex, because it's taking cards from lots of different core set kind of things. So it is a relatively simple style of Magic that you get to draft like that. And while this never showed up in white border, I think if it did, that probably would have gone in the cube, because I think this is a great effect for a starter beginner kind of Magic cube. It's just a cool effect. I think it lets the person playing it think about Magic in a different way. It makes them think about all the different phases of Magic instead of just going, "Oh, it's combat. I play this during combat." Like, no. You can play this before combat. You can play that at upkeep. You can play it on your turn. You can play it. Yeah, you can play this at all sorts of different times, and it can be effective and useful at those different times. And so it makes you think about Magic in a way. It's a good teaching card, is what I'm trying to say. But it's not a very good Pauper card. So I'm going to give this thing I'm still going to give it a 2.5 because of its versatility, but it's not going in any of my decks. Let's do a bonus card. It's Violet, like the flower, like what's on here. Yeah, a Violet Paul. It's 4 and a black for a Kindred instant fairy card. Destroy target non-black creature. Create a 1/1 black fairy rogue creature token with flying. Okay, so you get a Doomblade and a 1/1 flyer for 5 mana. that's not. I mean, Doomblade's 2 mana, and creating a 1/1 with flying, I'd say that's 1 mana. So that's like 3 mana that you're paying 5 to get, and that doesn't sound great. The thing this has going for it, though, is the kindred or the tribal, depending on which era of Magic we're talking about here, and this being able to be searched up, tutored up by anything that will find fairy cards. There's not a ton of those tutors around, but the fact that this is able to be grabbed by some different sources is kind of cool. Is kind of cool. I mean, we talked about Goblin Matron. Did we talk about the Harbingers? Right? Is there a Harbingers from? Yeah, Fairy Harbinger, which is uncommon, so doesn't work. But that will find a fairy card, which could find your Violet Paul, which that's a way you could go. That's a lot of mana to spend to just kill a single creature and make a single guy, though. So I'm not saying this is a useful card for your decks. I would not play it. I would not play it even in fairies, even in Dimir fairies, which is kind of the only deck it really could go into. Yeah, it's pretty expensive for what it does. It is instant speed, though. Instant speed, kill one of their guys and make a guy of your own that can block another one of their guys. It could potentially save you in a sticky situation. But the mana cost is just too great. Let's go with a 1.6. And really, the 0.6 is the instant speed and being able to kill a guy. But the one part is, look at this mana cost. That's kind of nuts. All right, I think that's good enough. I'm gonna get some breakfast finally, and hope you do, or hope you did. Hope you ate breakfast today. It's the most important meal of the day. Anyway, see ya.